good. How are you?
Good. Everything's great. I'm looking forward to getting into space and time in your world of music. So thank you for taking a minute out.
Oh man, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. So let's get into the album. One thing I think that really it affected all of us, but musicians was living through the pandemic. Was any of this a part of the process of getting through that time period?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? The title track from the tune was inspired partly by the world shut down, right? And I'm a baseball fanatic, and so we're all gearing up for spring training, and then
Yep.
it's gone. It's
Yeah.
gone,
Yep.
and nobody knew what was going to happen. And in the midst of that, I started reading. Joe Posnanski, a great sports writer,
Yep.
was in the process of writing a series of articles that would become a book called The Baseball 100,
Yeah.
and he was counting down the greatest baseball players in history, right? And so he's going through, the names that the Cy Youngs and the Babe Ruths and the Walter Johnsons, and then he start getting higher on the list, and I see names that I, as a lifelong baseball fan, never heard before, and so that made me kind of go, and so I'm reading about folks like Oscar Charleston and Josh Gibson and folks who if you live in Kansas City or in the Kansas City area and you visited the baseball museum there, you know who these folks are, right?
Yeah.
But um, they were not really like at the front of my consciousness, and so that was interesting for me um, in that time when like things really seem to be going great, and then the pandemic hits and it seems like it derails everything. You're like, oh man, why did this happen? Why did
Yeah.
this have to happen to me now, right? And so I'm thinking about that and reading about these players who lived through this time where again they were facing something that was completely out of their control,
Yeah.
that took them out of the opportunity to compete, um, because of racism, right?
Yeah.
And so that made me step back and go, okay, I need to check my privilege.
Yeah.
Like this is a difficult time for everybody, but like people have lived through so much worse. And so it made me think about that window that we get, and like we don't control what window we get, right? But we have to make the most of the time. Um, it's it's an idea, I guess, that I heard Sean Jones talk about this once. He said, living your dash. He says you go to a cemetery and you see
Uh-huh.
a birth date and a death date, and all this in between there's a dash, but that dash represents the time from beginning to ending. And so kind of riffing on that same idea, philosophically, I guess. But
Yeah.
um, yeah,
I dig it totally. So it's rare you're in the Kansas City metro.
I'm actually based in St. Louis.
Okay, you're in
Um,
St. Louis. Okay. All right.
yeah, yeah.
Cool. Very
So
cool.
so so that's going to be my very poor excuse for not having already spent time at the baseball museum in Kansas City. To to kind of know what's going on with those players before reading Joe Posnanski. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's a great writer. No, and I love the way that you wrap that up there. So, how did this journey in jazz begin? Where were you born and raised? How did this all begin for you?
Yeah, I grew up in Hannibal, Missouri,
Okay.
the boyhood home of Mark Twain, right? And so Hannibal's it's a small town. It's about 17,000 people. Right along the Mississippi River. Um, it seems like a very unlikely place for jazz musicians to come from, and yet, uh, I'm part of a lineage of musicians who came through. We had a really great high school jazz program, that was there, long before I was around, and continued through my time there. And the products of that program include Marty Morrison, a great drummer who's played all over the world. Uh, Matt Cain, who's based
Matt
in New
Kane.
York, great jazz drummer. Andrew Ouellette, who's on the record,
Yeah.
great piano player. Michael Schultz, alto saxophonist who now teaches at the University of Memphis. Jeremy Levy, who does all kinds of writing and arranging, great trombone player based in LA. And so all like that's not even getting everybody, but
Yeah.
there's a long list of musicians that came out of this, you know, kind of ho hum river town. And so we joke that there's something in the water, but there's something going on there, that place, fostered the interest in the music. And certainly there were folks around that area who were really important to me as I was coming up, kind of introducing me to different folks. Actually, I mentioned Marty Morrison, this great jazz drummer who's a dear friend of mine. His dad is a great Hammond B3 player,
Yeah.
and played kind of semi professionally around the area. Like he would take little gigs around town, but he had a day job too, so it wasn't like he was a full time musician. But I remember when I was like 14 or 15 years old, I had to be that age because I couldn't drive yet. Um, I got the invite from him through my parents to come over and play some tunes. And so I remember my mom dropping me off because I couldn't drive. And so I remember, going to Billy's house, and he would just sit down and start playing a tune. Do you know this one?
Yeah.
And I'd be like, no, I don't know that tune. And that, like, he was going to keep playing. So
Yeah.
the idea, what I figured out very quickly was that I was supposed to pick this up by ear, you
Yeah.
know? And so that was such a beautiful introduction into jazz as an oral art form. And this realization that, okay, I'm not going to learn this out of a book. I have to spend the time like really listening to the music and interacting with folks who live this. And so he was a huge influence. There's a drummer based in Quincy, Illinois, right across the river, Ben Bumbry, who had a band that played weekly, and I would go to sit in, and I didn't know any better, so I would stay till the end of the gig and help him tear down,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But it was, I think they thought it was amusing that this teenage kid just like wanted to be around the music so much, and
Yeah.
so those were two really big influences early on for me.
What do you like the best about being a professional musician? You've been at it for a while. What is it that you look forward to the most every day?
Hmm. Um, Well, so that's a I guess a complex answer for me. I I'm in a really fortunate position of I teach at Webster University. I'm director of jazz studies here, and so I'm not solely uh relying on touring, gigging income, which is a big difference. Like because I've done that too, and that's it's hard. Um, for me, I think those early relationships with folks who mentored me in the music, um, when I was, trying to figure out how to be an adult, when you're a teenager, early 20s, and you're trying to figure out how to be an adult, like not even as a musician, just in life. And there were great musicians who saw my interest in the music and mentored me not only musically but just as how to be a good person. And so for me, I think that's the most rewarding and exciting part about my teaching, but also it's a fun part about being a professional musician too. Now, I'm still definitely accepting mentorship, and sometimes it comes from folks who are younger than I am,
Yeah.
and I that's there's a beautiful thing about music that there's a give and take, and give and take is the wrong word. It's a give and more give,
Yeah.
like a give and receive, that happens between musicians when things are healthy.
Yeah.
There are exceptions to that, but I'm fortunate to be in a position now where I can kind of pick and choose and surround myself with folks who are givers and receivers. Yeah.
So on this new album, Space and Time, what are you hoping the listener gets from this album?
Hmm. Um, I hope that they find something that connects with them. I mean, I think there's there's quite a variety of things on the record. Um, and you know, I the this record was it actually it took me a while to get it to release, but it was recorded a couple years ago, and at I was kind of going through I mean, still going through a period of mourning. Like my mother had passed away a couple months before this was recorded, and very unexpectedly. And so there are some tunes on there that are dealing with grief. There are themes, you know, space and time is one. The standard for all we know. There's a cover of that tune on the record, and both of those are. I don't want folks to get the wrong impression because there's an element of of grieving, but also hopefulness and you know, we talked about space and time. Like a part of the concept of that was seizing the moment, um, and making the most of what it is. There's also some stuff on the record that is just fun. The tune Obfuscation takes some influence from Thelonious Monk and Charles Mingus, and it's got some like kind of tongue in cheek kind of elements to it. And so I hope that folks will hear the playfulness in a tune like that. One of the tunes from the record that I don't know if surprise is the right word, but seems like audiences have really connected with when I've played this live. There's a tune on there called Chile y Limon, which is my tribute to a gas station snack that I was introduced to while living in Austin, Texas. So you know, you go to like a Buc-ee's or a gas station down there, and it's like these slices of dried fruit, mango or pineapple that are, you know, coated in this chili dust, and it's like the perfect thing. So
Yeah.
it's a confirmation contrafact um in kind of a Latin style that seemed like people seem to enjoy. So um you know, I don't know what people will connect with. That's been one of the kind of fun things about putting this music in front of audiences,
Yeah.
is seeing what folks connect with. But I think there's something for most people.
Yeah.
Um, and if you know, if folks don't connect with it, that's okay too.
Sure.
But I think that the feedback that I'm getting from other musicians and from the audiences that we've been able to put this music in front of, has been really positive. So that's been fun. You know, when you sit down to write music, and you rehearse it with the band, you hope that people are going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And that's been the case so far.
So at the end of the day, with all of these things that are a part of who you are as a performer, a recording artist, an educator, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, students, fans, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Hmm. Oh man. I think it sometimes changes moment to moment.
Yeah.
You know, I have kids at home, and so I'm constantly thinking about um, like who I am as a parent, and I think like that for me, being a parent has been one of the things that really like holds a mirror up to who you are as a person, because there are times when things are going great and it's really easy to be a good parent.
Yeah.
And then there are times when it's really a struggle. You know, everybody's tired and you're just trying to get through the day. And so um I try to maintain an awareness through all of that of you know, like you want to do the best that you can for your kids, whether those are, well, the, you know, in my case, like as an educator, I think about it the same way. Like I want to be the best educator that I can be for the students that I work with. um and some days I feel like I do great, and then there are those days that are a struggle, but I always want to be moving forward and moving, you know, becoming better at everything that I do, as a musician, as a person. Um, but it's not linear, and so there are times when it becomes more of a struggle. And you know, but to answer your question, the things that I aspire to are kindness, patience, generosity, humility. Those are the things I aspire to. And some days I do really well, and some days I struggle.
I get it. It's adulting. I totally get it. So Space and Time is the new album. I urge everyone to pick up a copy. This has been wonderful, man. Thank you so much for imparting your story, taking some time out for the album, and have a great holiday season, man.
I really appreciate you having me on. Such a privilege, and thanks for talking about the album.
Yeah, absolutely.